Hey people of the interwebs, it is Q with another scuba diving adventure. This one is a bit of a let's go and see if it's possible kind of scuba dive. Myself and Mrs. Q spent yesterday looking at boats in Brisbane, and we also stayed overnight. And because we're not too far from the Gold Coast, we're going to head down there and see if I can tag along with some other scuba divers that are hopefully going to be diving at the Seaway. So we'll find out who we meet up with when we get there.
When I got to the Seaway, there were a couple of teenage boys there who'd just acquired their open water certificates, and they were about to go out with their dads and do some dad and lad scuba diving, and they were quite happy to let me tag along. Normally I dive the Sunshine Coast, and one of the things that struck me about diving on the Gold Coast was the amount of scuba divers in the water. It was busy, it was like rush hour for scuba divers. The other thing I noticed was the big difference in water temperature. At the Seaway, it was just 20 degrees in the water, while the air temperature was 26. And we also had humidity of 60% on this day. One of the consequences of the high humidity and the difference in the air temperature and water temperature was the fact that my camera housing steamed up the minute I brought it out of the water. At the start of the dive, we dropped into 3 meters, which is 9.8 feet, and the maximum depth we reached was 10.9 meters, which is 35.8 feet. As we dropped below the surface, the viz was around about 5 meters or 16.4 feet. Plus we were on the tail end of an incoming tide with quite a bit of current still running. Even with all the scuba divers in the area, I still managed to come across a little baby ray hiding in the sand and also a juvenile flathead. One of the attractions of the Gold Coast Seaway are the many different fish species that all seem to hang around the sandpipe. And I guess because they're so used to scuba divers, they're in no hurry to get out of your way, and some of them will even come up and say, "Hi, who are you? What are you doing in my zone?" I'm not sure what this is, so if one of my viewers could let me know, that would be great. I just wanted to get a picture of it because it just looks so attractive. And it wasn't that big either. Here's one of my favourite sea creatures, the octopus. This guy wasn't really in a hurry to get away from me, but he certainly didn't like having a camera shoved into his face. Beautiful creatures, and just fascinating the way they can change their skin colour and the skin texture in an instant. And those eyes, they are just amazing. With the big variety of fish species that inhabit this area, it's hard to know whether to look up, down, left or right. And they all seem to get along quite happily together and have total indifference for the presence of the scuba diver. There were even species that I'd never encountered before, so if any of my viewers can tell me what these two are, that would be great. Here's another one of my favourites, the porcupine fish, and again, seem quite nonchalant and in no hurry to get out of my way. I mentioned previously that the viz was about 5 meters, but in some parts it actually dropped down to 2 or 3 meters. I've made a mental note that I want to come back and dive this site again when the visibility is a lot better. Here you can tell by the lighting that I'm coming to the end of the dive and getting into shallower water, but there was still plenty of fish to see. And big props to the Gold Coast Council for putting in these concrete steps with a wonderful handrail, which makes entry and exit to this dive site so easy. And here you'll notice the camera housing fogging up again as it comes out of the cooler water into the hotter, humid air. One thing that did make me chuckle was watching this guy with a fishing rod walking away empty-handed when just meters away from him I'd been spotting hundreds and hundreds of big fish. I guess it just wasn't his day. So if you're ever in the area, I highly recommend popping down to the end of the spit and diving the Gold Coast Seaway. You won't regret it. And before I go, I just got to say a big thank you to Frank and his son for letting me tag along on their dive. Thanks, guys. If you enjoyed this scuba diving adventure with Q and you'd like to see some more, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and leave a like on those videos you do like. Don't forget to leave your comments too. As soon as I see those, I'll get back to you. Thanks for watching and take it easy.